Yo, what's going on? What's going on? This is Evan Williams, founder and creator of Health by Any Means Necessary. And just jumping on here real quick, just to remind everybody that tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be kicking off our FUBU Community Fast. So once again, for those who don't know, FUBU is a for us, by us, 24-hour fast. Pretty much, this is community-based. This is an initiative that we started to bring awareness to the health of our community, to also bring awareness to the fact that, you know, we have what it takes from a grassroots level to actually improve our conditions, and also to bring awareness to the many benefits of fasting. You know, there's so many benefits to it. It's completely free. It's very practical. You can do it at any time. And then our last objective with this fast is to make sure that we find more time to focus on the inside world versus the outside world. You know, everything we're seeing on the news and social media, we spend so much time, so much focus. We give so much of our time and our focus and our attention to the outside world. And, you know, we have to keep it real. A lot of this is manufactured. You know, some of it is real. But, you know, a lot of it is manufactured trauma. And we have to be very careful about that because we give so much time and attention to it. So instead of focusing so much on that, we want to make it a habit to bring it back home as far as our attention and our time. And home means, you know, back to the community, back to our neighborhoods, back to our households, our families, and then, of course, back to yourself. And so, you know, that's the four objectives of the FUBU Community Fast. Like I said, one, to bring attention to the current state, the current status, our conditions as African Americans in this community. And I know you've heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. Right now, we are listed as the unhealthiest ethnic and racial group in this country. You know, we top the charts when it comes to type 2 diabetes. We are very high when it comes to our heart conditions, heart disease. You know, we top the charts for high blood pressure, obesity. You know, we rank number one for many of the horrible conditions that come from, largely from, you know, Western society as far as the foods and our lifestyle. And so we need to understand that. We need to make sure that we are well aware, because if we're not aware, if we have no idea that this is our current status and we continue on this trajectory, you know, what do you think the trajectory or the projection of a group of people who are currently labeled as the unhealthiest ethnic group, and that group is not even aware of their status? What do you think is the projection of those people? Doesn't look too good. And so, you know, usually, like I said, I prefer not to be the bearer of bad news, but in this situation, you know, I have no problem doing it. I embrace it because we have to do better, and we can do better. Another part of it is, you know, many of these conditions that we deal with, and I'm talking about chronic conditions, high blood pressure, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, you know, many of these conditions, we've been sold this lie that they are chronic and progressive. We have been sold this lie that it runs in our families. And another objective of the FUBU Community Fast is to bring awareness that these are lies. It's not true. And, you know, I'll be doing a video tonight, a live video tonight, talking about our four objectives, but also bringing some information to the community. You know, when they talk about the whole, it runs in my family, and they talk about, you know, the possibilities of it being genetic, we have to understand that there is no proof, there is no sound evidence to back up those statements. The idea that it runs in your family, the best they can do as far as backing it up is that you look around your household and you look around your family reunion, and you see that many people have the same condition or a similar condition. But as far as it really being something that's passed on a genetic level, there's no evidence for that. There's no evidence for that. And so when I see that, and I see that when we look at you go and look at any of one of these websites, and you want to know is what causes type 2 diabetes, or what causes high blood pressure, heart disease. When you go on any one of these websites and you look at the risk factors, they're going to list genetic and family history as a top risk factor. And so here you have something being listed as a top risk factor, but at the same time, there's little to no proof of actually substantiating that claim. And so it makes me wonder, how do you push something so hard but not have any proof for it? How do you push something that's so personal? Because, essentially what you're doing is you're telling people that they're innately defective. How do you push something that's so personal as being the truth? And so what I'll be talking about tonight is how, based on the research that I've done, this idea that it's genetic, this idea that it runs in our families, is a genomic mask, a medical fairy tale, and a veil. These claims that have nothing behind it to prove or to back it up are being used to cover up something that is very detrimental to us as a people, as a community. Because when we go behind this idea of it running in our family, one, we got to understand that the conditions themselves are called lifestyle conditions. They're called preventable conditions. This means that they can be prevented. It also means that lifestyle actually causes it. Also, when you actually look at the real data, the one that was not paid for by food companies or pharmaceutical companies, you're going to see that 90 to 95% of what the modifiable risk factors that can actually prevent, improve, and reverse these conditions are lifestyle. Like, it's modifiable. We're talking about eating, we're talking about moving, we're talking about stress reduction. Those things that you actually control make up 90 to 95% of the work when it comes to improving, preventing, and reversing it. But yet, they start off the conversation with, it's genetic. It runs in your family. I have a huge problem with that. Because, also when I'm talking about this genomic mask, this medical fairy tale, I believe that this medical fairy tale is really covering up a horror story. This mask is covering up, a whole different face, a face that is not going to be as friendly. Because when we start looking at the other risk factors, we start looking at the other conditions that are being covered up, such as the poverty, such as the social injustice, such as the social inequality, such as the quality of the water, the quality of the air. When we talk about the miseducation as far as food and health goes, there's so much to be said, and there's so many things that correlates with the inequality that we see in the African American community. And so you can't separate the health with the quality of life of the people and then tie them all together and say that it runs in your family. No, what you mean is that these people are more likely to live in the same areas that their parents lived in, which was a low LES, what they call lower economical status, pretty much poverty. They lived in poverty, so they're more likely to live in the same conditions as their predecessors, their mothers and fathers. Also, they're more likely to eat the same food in that area. Also, we know that those areas are more likely to have predatory food restaurants or food chains in that area. And when I'm talking about predatory, I'm talking about people who know damn well that a certain community cannot take on these types of foods that they're selling, but at the same time they understand the stress, they understand the depression, and they understand the anxiety that's going on in that community. And they also understand that these people will most likely take any chance they can, or any opportunity to escape that reality for a little bit, even if it means deteriorating their health and them not unknowingly knowing that. And so pretty much what I'm talking about is the foods that make you feel good for the moment, the foods that help you escape the reality of poverty, the food that helps you escape the reality of cop brutality, escape the reality of abuse, just the oppression overall. Just the food that helps you escape it for a little bit, while when that effect is over, you go right back to the same situation. You have people who understand that these foods are unhealthy. They won't even eat it themselves, but they will come into your community and prey upon you. They will be parasitic. They will be a predator to your people, and then sell that food, and then leave the community, take the bag back to their community, not take the food back to the community, and do this over and over and over and over. And so this is what I call predatory food chains, because they know damn well, if they had morals and if they had ethics, they know damn well they wouldn't do it to their people. But they see our communities, and they see that historically, we have been marginalized. And so we can't separate the fact that, African Americans, we come from ancestors that were at one point enslaved in this country. We can't separate that reality from our current reality. We can't separate the fact that our ancestors built this country. We can't separate the fact that after building this country, we were pushed to the margins of society. And then when we were pushed to the margins of society, we did for ourselves. We created the Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Rosewood, the Rosewood, Florida, the Green, I can't remember the name of the community, but we created all these communities, and then once again, terrorists ride into those communities, burn it down, and then we're forced to move on and create something else. And so there's been this dedication to making sure that the advancement of us has been stagnated, has been stifled. And so, you can't separate those things from our current reality. And that's what I'm saying. You can't separate those things from our current reality. You can't separate the poverty from the health. You can't separate the social injustice, the social inequality. You can't separate any of those things from our current health status. And so when you just take this broad paintbrush and just say, it runs in their family, it's genetics, there's so much more there. There's so much more there. But also what you're doing is called learned helplessness. You're pretty much, telling people that there's nothing you could have done to prevent being diabetic. It just runs in your family. There's nothing you could have done to prevent hypertension. It just runs in your family. And so since there's nothing you could have done to prevent this, take this medication, because after all, it's not your fault. So now they're going to make money off of you from the medications. Now they're going to make money off of you from the clinics in your community. The medications will cause other deficiencies in your body. That's going to cause you to need to be on another medication, which is going to cause you to be on another medication, which ultimately may lead to you having to have a procedure, which ultimately may lead to you having to have a lifelong procedure such as dialysis. And so we can't remain on this conveyor belt going through this system that's just been abusing and preying upon us since time immemorial. We have never had a relationship with this country that has been mutual, never mod. We've never had a relationship in this community that has practiced, in this country that has practiced mod, that has been reciprocity. Never. And so since we know that to be the truth, we now have to turn inward into the community and ask ourselves, since we know this to be the truth, what are we going to do about it? Do we continue to ask these people to do right by us? I say no, and that's why we created the FUBU Community Fast. And so, like I said, we're bringing awareness to the health conditions of our community. We're also making sure we are aware that many conditions that we deal with in our communities are preventable. It's not that the gene for type 2 diabetes runs in your family, or the gene for high blood pressure runs in your family. It's that the lifestyle. It's that you're most likely eating the very same food that your family members had who had those conditions. It's most likely that you're living in a similar condition. It's most likely that you're dealing with stress in a similar way. It's most likely that you may have picked up some of the habits. It's most likely that you are probably not moving around as much. But it's also highly likely that you are dealing with the same type of oppression that your parents may have been dealing with, the same type of stress. I was reading this article the other day about the effects of feeling oppressed and how that affects your health. And, many people don't talk about, they say things like stress kills or you make me sick. I don't think we know just how deep or how real that is. I don't think we understand just how real that is. And so that's why, the very last objective, well, not the last objective, but the last listed objective of the FUBU Community Fast is for us to turn our focus inward. We spend so much time focusing on what's supposedly going on outside, in society, what's going on media, social media, what's going on in politics, and we spend a lot of time focusing on these things, entertainment. And I get it, that is a coping mechanism, but many of these coping mechanisms are being used against us. Also, many of these coping mechanisms, the focus outward is taking away the focus from where it should be, which is inward. Whether we're talking about in your community, in your neighborhood, in your household, in your family, or even in yourself. If you're constantly focusing on, who's, getting impeached, or who's, getting divorced from this person, or who's cheating on that person, and you start your day off with that, and you end your day with that. In the middle of the day, you have, constant shots of some type of entertainment or some type of drama. You got to understand, you're taking that in. You're taking that in on a subconscious level as a real story for yourself. And so the trauma that's inflicted upon a person who's watching a video of police brutality, the trauma that's inflicted on a subconscious level of somebody who's watching someone who looks just like them, walk just like them, talk just like them, live in the same community just like them, being abused or being, shot or being, murdered in any type of way like that. We might think that we're desensitized from it, and consciously we are desensitized to it because we can watch it. Our ancestors would never have even thought of the day of us, watching us get our ass whooped as entertainment, or being shot and being shared and passed around. They would have never thought that, we would get to that point. But we are to that point. We are to that point where we can watch these things and like, man, that's sad. Scroll. Oh, look at this. Oh man, scroll. And so what we're talking about right now is, this what they call neurocinematic trauma. You may not feel like you're traumatized at that moment, but you're telling your brain, you're telling your subconscious a different story. You look like those people, you walk like those people, you talk like those people, you resonate differently with those people. And so what you are seeing, you may not be feeling consciously, but subconsciously it's taking effect and it's stressing you the hell out. And you got to understand about the stress hormones. And so with those stress hormones, it's like automated oppression. Things are so automated right now, and trust me, this is not just doom and gloom. We're going to come to the conclusion. Things are so automated right now as far as the oppression goes that the very system that created this oppression can now stand back and look at it and be like, man, look at these people. They're savages. Look at these folks shooting each other, pants sagging, drinking, eating all this crazy food. Look at these people, man. They don't know what to do with themselves. They're savages. We're to that point now where the oppression is now automated, is what they call internalized oppression, internalized racism, where we even look at the situations and we're like, man, look what we're doing. And granted, I'm both and, people say, you got to be on one side or the other side, where you're like, you point towards how we got into the situation, or you got to be on the side where you're like, no, we put ourselves in a situation, we have to do better. I'm both ands. I'm 1,000% about we have to do what we have to do to make the situation better, because I just sat here and told you about what's going on and how it's systemic. You can't have millions of people in the prison population and then have 50% of that be African American males. Like that is not a situation that happened by chance. If you have, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of people incarcerated. And it just so happens that 50% of that population is African Americans, and African Americans only make up what they call like 12 to 13% of the population. That's not just by chance. That's systemic. That is a systemic problem, and we have to understand it. And so, like I said, I'm both and. I'm on the side where I'm like, all right, we have to do for us. We have to do what it takes for us to radically improve our health, our communities, our conditions from a grassroots level, because that's what I trust more, because I know where you live at. We chop it up together. Our kids go to school together. We're a community. If you do me wrong, you're actually doing your future generation wrong. You have a vested interest. I prefer to work with people who have a vested interest in me, my children, and I have the vested interest in them and their children and their community as a whole as well too. Like, we eat together, literally. Now, we have to do that. But on the other side, I want to make sure that we're clear about how the situation came to be. I'm not giving a pass for the 250 years of chattel slavery. I'm not giving a pass for the years of Jim Crow. I'm not giving a pass for the years of redlining. I'm not giving a pass for mass incarceration. I'm not giving a pass for things that take place like in Flint, Michigan, where the water is horrible. I'm not giving a pass for the lead paint. I'm not giving a pass for any of those things. I'm not giving any pass for that. I'm telling us, we have to know, we have to understand how those things took place. Now that we understand how we got there, I think it'll be foolish. Well, no, I don't want to say foolish, but the type of person I am, I'm like, now that we see that, now that we pull that mask off, now that we see what's under that veil, we have to act appropriately. And appropriate action is going to be doing for self. Like, we have to get into the habit of fasting. We have to get into the habit of drinking water. We have to get into the habit of getting sunlight. We have to get into the habit of understanding that those people who are in your communities who will sell you the food that they won't eat, the people who won't even put change in your hand because they think you're disgusting, they think you're the scum of the earth, we got to get into the habit of understanding that I probably shouldn't be eating from you. Like, you hate my guts. I probably should not eat your food. You had the audacity to put a dialysis clinic right next to a pawn shop. I probably shouldn't be dealing with you. You have the audacity to fight my mother and my sister and my aunt right outside my community at a nail shop, punch her in the face, and do all these things, and then sell me chicken fried wings, fried rice in the next building. I probably shouldn't be messing with you. And so what we have to do is see the predators for who they are, understand that this is a parasitic relationship. We don't even have to say anything to them. We don't even have to do the marching and the fighting and the policy. Like, I believe we should have a segment of people who do that, but I can't lead that because that's not me innately. But I am for the people who, all right, we see them for who they are. Let's not even say anything to them. Which brother or sister knows how to throw down in the kitchen? Who can we pool our money together for? And we will constantly pay you money on a weekly basis for you to go to the grocery store. Rather, even if you have to drive, an hour away to find fresh produce, we will fund you. And we will fund a team in our community that will actually start a kitchen where we'll only come to you, like exclusively, we'll only come to you. Maybe this takes place in the church where we only come to you. We'll only get food from you. When it comes to water, when it comes to anything we need, we'll only do it with you. Everybody else, they're non-existent as far as them. I know they own the buildings. I know they own the plaza. But by the end of that third week, they're going to be outside them plazas and them buildings like, yo, over here, come. We haven't seen you in a while. Come eat. Like, nah, we done. Like like Birdman says, we finished ours, we done. Nothing to say. Because I don't get it. I don't understand. If I'm telling you all these things and how it's systemic, now I'm going to ask you to change. Something tells me you're just going to switch up the game. Like, you're going to do an Allen Iverson crossover, switch up the game, and what I thought was a hustle was going to get fixed, and you're just going to come up with another hustle. I'm done. We're done. And so this is what I feel like we should do. And also we understand just the effects, the benefits of fasting. Extremely practical. And so that's what